So in early 2025, with fires blazing through two communities near Los Angeles, politicians started blaming poor wildfire management, like lack of forest thinning or controlled burns, for the disaster. Except the Pacific Palisade fires east of LA, they started in Topanga State Park, chaparral scrubland. The nearest forest, national forest, is 20 miles away, and actual pine trees over 40 miles. Now, the Eaton fire was closer, was in the Angeles National Forest, but also chaparral and 15 miles from any pines. Well, maybe Chris was a little closer. But chaparral scrubland, by definition, is nothing but dense undergrowth. That's its natural condition. Here's a definition from 1848, before anyone gave a damn about warming planets, by the way. And while chaparral is a fire-adapted environment, expecting a high-intensity fire every 30 to 50 years, prescribed burns are not done there. Fire suppression doesn't work in all ecosystems. Also, it can invite invasive annual grasses to take over, and then they dry up, and then they burn even easier, and now you've got a bigger problem. So, well, what actually may have caused this fire? Likely a mix of 2023 heavy rains fueling plant growth, then a 2024 dry spell, and then Santa Ana winds. And wind is a primary factor in most megafires. Just add a spark, right? Easy with humans around, and we've been here before. Trump and team made the same claims during the 2018 Woolsey fire, pushing logging agendas back when Trump implied we should rake the forest.
Got to take care of the floors, the floors of the forests, very important. You look at other countries where they do it differently, and it's a whole different story. I was with the president of Finland, and he said, we have a much different, we're a forest nation. He called it a forest nation. And they spend a lot of time on raking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem.
But you know what? Screw it. Let's dig in and explore this forest thinning and bad management. But to do it right, we'll start with some quick history. So, in 1876, the U.S. created a division of forestry after a massive fire got people worried about U.S. commercial timber supply, and private landowners were also decimating their forests. Its goal was to manage forests as a renewable resource. Then came the big blow-up of 1910. This is a fire that scorched 3 million acres of Idaho and Montana, again, carried on extremely high winds. So the newly renamed Forest Service started a new policy: eliminate fire from the landscape. And it became a worldwide model. Despite earlier findings, it took scientists until the 1970s to convince the Forest Service that their approach was wrong. Reputations and industry to protect. So by then, 80 years of fire suppression had made forests thick with undergrowth. Oh, and three new problems, right? One, urban sprawl into wildfire regions. And two, there was global climate disruption. And three, a Forest Service without strong ethical guardrails was finding new ways to increase board feet of timber sold to meet their targets, especially since most private forests were depleted. And a post-World War II housing boom, well, they needed more lumber. And the Forest Service shifted from selective cuts to clear cutting, salvage logging, and less discriminate forest thinning. And they built logging roads, clear cutting mountainsides, which brought erosion and permanently degraded ecosystems, all despite their stated intent of managing forests as a perpetual resource. Today, the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management continue large-scale timber sales, often misleading the public about their motives. Timber and logging contracts pad their funding at, well, at an average of 2.9 million board feet a year. And toward this goal, they have been caught manipulating data, studies, people, and this further damages their reputation. Don't take my word for it. Here's some links. The Forest Service has even been caught attempting to clear-cut areas that they claimed had no living trees, but had a thriving forest where they said there was none. It's no surprise, it's silviculture, and I'm sure they care, but they see our forests as a crop. Okay, but why care? Well, I mean, fire has been with plants for 470 million years. True, forests showed up maybe 390 million years ago, and plants adapted. Right? Some even need fire. So they have been at this, well, a lot longer than us. And what do trees do that we need to be so concerned about losing them? Well, for one, they sequester carbon. In 1796, naturalist Jean Senebier discovered trees consume carbon dioxide. They release oxygen, they hold on to the rest. You learned it in grade school. It's photosynthesis, not some liberal scheme. It's just how plants live and how they make our existence possible. Also, throughout the 1800s, scientists researched what we now call the greenhouse effect. In 1896, Svante Arrhenius linked CO2 to a warming climate while researching ice age causes. And it wasn't until 1908 that he even cited coal companies as a factor, long before those climate conspiracies. So, maybe lay off the deep state Green New Deal claims. To not believe in man-caused climate upheaval, you have to not believe in photosynthesis, basic chemistry, and simple thermodynamics. I mean, whatever device you are watching me on right now might melt or fry without the tech that accounts for thermodynamics and controlling it. You can't pick and choose when physical facts are true. Less trees plus more carbon in the air equals disaster. At its simplest. That's it. And yet, we cut down the trees. Why? Well, it's a resource, and we refuse to accept its replacements, of which there are many, but why? Follow the money. You'll find some government funding, lumber, livestock interests, and yeah, the Forest Service. Don't believe me? Well, Trump's already made moves to bypass laws and log all our forests. He recently named Tom Schultz to lead the Forest Service. He's a former VP of Resources and Government Affairs at Idaho Forest Group. It's a timber lumber company. And before that, well, he was director at Idaho Department of Lands and overzealously led them to record timber harvests. Because money, logging deals justified under the guise of forest health. And forest thinning sounds logical, right? Less fuel, less fire. Well, not exactly that simple. Politicians, they make stuff sound simple because that gets your vote. Thinning may be valid in some cases, sure. Combined with other actions and vegetation density could be a factor as well in wildfire. I mean, I can even confirm tree ring studies show all wildfires are normal. Wildfire of all intensities. It's normal in all forests, even rainforests. But you know what? Prescribed fire is not the same as a natural fire. And forests are also all different, with unique fire regimes. Some, like the wetter Pacific Northwest, are adapted to massive weather-driven stand-replacing fires. every century or two, it's best to leave these areas alone, aside from thinning around communities. Even species within a forest have different reactions, different fire responses. Engelmann spruce, red fir, and large sugar pines of Northern California were stressed after a prescribed fire. Yet nearby Jeffrey pines, they did not too bad, they did fine. Controlled burns remove also the undergrowth and small trees. So, large trees get bigger and healthier with less competition for resources, in drought. That's important. But keep in mind, bigger trees also equals more money. That's a lumber company's view of the world. And the jury's out on benefits. Many studies, often funded by or done by the Forest Service, say controlled burns are good and help some species. Like giant sequoia, they need fire to release their seeds and fight competition. But other studies found no correlation between fire and undergrowth, especially huge mega fires. I guess my point is there's still a lot we don't know. We do controlled burns at inappropriate times, like spring. It's to control the fire better, and we could try autumn, but a study found that this leads to more invasive cheatgrass. So we burn in spring, killing flowers, destroying the seed bank, killing animals and their young because they were adapted to need that springtime to grow and fly or run away before summer fire season came. But, we do succeed in giving little Johnny asthma in the town next door, right? Also, pine needle duff. This stuff returns really fast, and there's undergrowth, and all that comes back, and you have the risk for a fire faster than people think. And natural fire returns before a forest recovers. Now, while prescribed burns are often done every 5 to 15 years, natural fire cycles range from 25 on up to 600 years, not just 5. But controlled burns also don't match natural fires in intensity. And tree ring studies show we're far from historical fire norms. High severity fires rose 8-fold from 1985 to 2017, but there's actually been a 2 to 14-fold decrease since 1920 in the US and globally, by the way. That decrease isn't just from stamping out all the fires. Roads, towns, agriculture, they fragment what forests we do have. Yeah, less wildfire because we already destroyed so much. The fact that it is increasing now points to disrupted weather often, overcoming even our happenstance barriers. Again, fire is a natural part of all ecosystems. But is logging? Does thinning forests stop wildfires or protect stored carbon? Again, it's not that simple. To be fair, it can be beneficial if strategically applied, usually near communities. But beyond that, numerous studies question the practice or cite incomplete understanding. And they say that it's not a panacea to the problems. Worse, thinning is very often just a euphemism for good old-fashioned logging. See, thinning it's not some dude with pruners taking down branches, pulling weeds. It's removing whole trees, sometimes over half the trees in a stand, often paired with prescribed burns that take another 20 to 50% of the subcanopy. Biomass and carbon, all of that gone. All in the claim that undergrowth and young trees are wildfire prone. That includes large old growth trees with the most carbon, the most nutrients and profit margin, all carted off to sawmills, leaving an ecosystem with fewer resources. Worse yet, nearby communities get a false sense of security. The 2018 Camp Fire, which devastated Paradise, California, that area had been heavily thinned, yet the fire still raged, aided by dry piles of slash debris from logging. The real culprit, though, was wind-driven embers, igniting homes, blowing in from up to 5 miles away. And a community that hadn't done enough to protect homes. Very often, houses are the fuel, burning while trees still stand. 18,000 buildings burned in that fire, but the forest didn't look so bad considering. A thinned forest also lets wind blow faster through the trees. No firefighter can really stop a flame on a 40-mile-per-hour wind. It's, again, a major factor in most catastrophic fires. Firemen at that point, they're just trying to keep escape routes open. Thinned forests are also prone to erosion, flooding, and often, again, those invasive grasses that burn hotter and faster. They dry out with less shade and biomass to hold in moisture, which is bad in an already dry ecosystem. And despite these and other issues, thinning and clear-cutting, they still get defended. One claim is that we're just doing what, the Native Americans did it for centuries. Yeah, and even Native people have adopted this caretaker dogma, but the idea is often cited with little scientific evidence, just anecdote and oral tradition. And this historical fire setting was very localized, if they did it at all. Some tree ring evidence ties historic burns to weather patterns and ethnographic histories of locations, relocations, fleeing disasters. That shows that people did not have control of existing fire regimes. They certainly affected the landscape, but let's avoid exaggeration, especially when it's being used for monetary gain. Also, the idea that thinning somehow saves carbon, it's about as questionable as a mullet-mustache combo. I mean, some of the timber and undergrowth is ground into pellets and burned in power stations. From cutting to burning, this process pumps carbon into the atmosphere, 2.8 times more than non-biomass solutions. And regardless of the source, like sawdust or it's just low-quality pulpwood, it's not carbon-neutral energy. Pulverized wood doesn't recapture carbon. Living trees do. The logging vehicles and the machinery, they also come in and they compact soil, damage roots, create water stress, and injure surrounding trees. And then those wounds become entry points for disease, for insects like bark beetles, leading to further losses, which is ironic considering people tried thinning to stop bark beetles. Don't get me wrong. Moisture and climate variability do influence wildfires, not just humans and wind. Thinning can reduce crown fires, but it may also worsen problems without addressing any of the root causes. Finally, let's talk salvage logging. If you imagine a forest should always be lush and green, you're wrong. The natural world is not a golf course. Forests had 300 million years to work it all out before we started turning them into parks. As such, dead trees, fallen logs, tree snags, many species call that home. It's essential and highly diverse habitat, not an eyesore. The Nissan Cube, that's an eyesore, but this is not. And some of these species, by the way, eat bark beetles, but, logging interests, they play on that mistaken idea of ours that healthy forests should be green to promote salvage logging. And after fires, clear cutting removes useless trees for firewood, lumber, and fuel pellets, often including healthy trees, to cover the cleanup costs, even though dead trees can provide usable lumber if harvested before rot. We imagine 100% destruction, but trees hold too much water to burn completely. Most fires only char the surface, rarely penetrating any further than maybe an inch or two. And even if every tree in a stand is dead after a fire, their story's not done. Trees still contain most of that carbon and, other nutrients. And despite claims from satellite LiDAR that 85% of the carbon is lost, reality is different on the ground, where direct observation found only 1 to 4% of biomass is burned and immediately lost into the atmosphere. And much of the plant materials return to the soil as biochar, sequestering some of that carbon for centuries. And sure, a lot of carbon is released from dead trees' decay, but slowly, and rates depend on climate. 93% of all that release is in the tropics, not the US. And even the study that found that, its authors say leave the dead wood where it is. It releases slowly and it's absorbed by new trees because plants come back. When trees die, these forest snags often hold moisture like a sponge, and they give life to numerous creatures while putting nutrients back in the soil for future generations. I mean, teenagers are messy, but we don't clear cut their bedrooms. And if you cut down the tree and take it away, you've carted off all the carbon, the nutrients, the essential habitat. Your forest is now getting a little closer to desert. Yay, good job, human. And the argument that this lumber generated from that still sequesters carbon in construction, it's dead. It's just dead with the carbon that was captured during life. Trees keep accumulating carbon for centuries, along with their babies. Houses don't suck in carbon and certainly don't make little house babies. So, salvage logging equals an ecologically bankrupt idea. Yet, we keep on cutting. So, what if we left it all alone? Well, this is an inadvertent example. Horseshoe 2 fire, fueled by a very rare freeze in southern Arizona, hit just 15 years after the rattlesnake fire, which, that's a little too fast for some ecoregions, even in the fire-adapted Chiricahua Mountains. But this is a national park, so no logging. I mean, they did immediately let in some livestock grazing. That's not necessarily good, but here we get diverse reactions. Oak, aspen, they all regrow from roots. Some pines resisted the fire. Other species like Arizona cypress, well, they needed it to germinate. The landscape shows diverse wildfire responses. Some areas thrive, others shift pines to aspen. They'll probably turn back to pines over time. That's a natural progression of plants as the pines shade out the aspen. And yet there's also areas that still struggle after 15 years, or I don't know, maybe we're just impatient as a species. But I guess it's safe to say it's complicated. In part because our problems have root causes that need to be studied. And it's a moving target with global warming. So what to do? Well, simple. Change fire policy. One is don't fight every wildfire. Focus on human-caused fire prevention. Improve home fire resistance. Fight the better battle. Here's a list of recommendations for protecting homes. Pause if you like. And limit urban sprawl into high-risk zones for fire. 2, stop making scientists the villain. Science is, by definition, an imperfect and self-correcting process. The goal is to become less wrong. That takes a little time. We have conflicting research and we need independent studies of various ecosystems, systems, species, and fire regimes. Our existing research is nowhere near complete, potentially biased, and forests also change over space and time, especially with climate disruption. 3, maybe end financial incentives for logging. Remove the profit motive from the Forest Service. Fund them for conservation, not timber sales. And stop buying products that use wood. I know that's hard, but there are alternative building materials, paper, energy, all of that. Take a new path. Hey, companies, teach employees new skills. Build with 3D printing, recycled plastic blocks, ICFs, Fox blocks, Renco USA. Many of these can withstand fire, rot, rust, and even termites. Make paper from hemp, bamboo, sugarcane, cotton, even calcium carbonate. Hell, use bacteria to help make paper. Yeah, make a new industry. Stop holding on to the past. 4, support legal action. The court system was flooded with conservative justices that apparently are deferring to federal institutions a lot of times, and Trump wants to bypass the few environmental protections that we do have and give it all away to logging, but we have to try. And vote, maybe. I mean, we need a Congress with enough balls to maintain separation of powers and to stand up for the environment. The bottom line is that fire is natural. Logging is not. Thinning forests can often make wildfires worse. If we want to fight climate change and protect ecosystems, we need to stop the destruction of our forests and understand things better, not double down on outdated, profit-driven policies. Trees, that's not lumber, that's life. A living, breathing city. Turpentine, Twigsy, out.